The AC kicked on with a low mechanical whine, sharp at first, then humming like it had a grudge against the heat. I was still holding the hotel receipt, flimsy and thin like fast food napkin paper. By the time I looked up from it, the shower had stopped running. I could hear her humming, too casual for what I was about to ask. We weren't even supposed to be staying there. That wasn't the plan. It was a Friday afternoon in mid-May, one of those southern days where the pavement felt sticky and even the wind blew hot. We were on our way to her cousin's graduation in Charleston, just a quick weekend road trip, she said. A chance to get away, eat shrimp and grits, maybe walk the historic district like we were a couple with disposable income and no undercurrent of unresolved tension. We argued about the hotel booking the night before we left. She did it without asking me, again. It's just cheaper, she'd said, tapping her phone without looking up. Same distance from the venue, free breakfast, what more do you want? I didn't fight her on it, I picked my battles. Lately, that list was getting shorter. But standing in that hotel room now, room 218, faded carpet, an old Samsung flat screen bolted to the wall, I felt something I couldn't name. Not anger, not suspicion, something more like friction in the gut, like Velcro not lining up right. Her name's Mia, by the way. We've been married 6 years, together for 8. I met her at a music festival in Asheville. She had glitter on her cheeks and a tattoo that said "Be kind anyway" on her forearm. I liked the way she held eye contact, like she was already sure of herself and whoever stood in front of her had better catch up. We weren't alike in many ways. She thrived on change. I liked my routines, but we worked, or at least we used to. Things had been different lately. She started wearing earbuds in the kitchen while she cooked, listening to true crime podcasts instead of asking how my day went. She stayed up late with her screen brightness dimmed all the way down. I'd walk past the couch and she'd flip her phone over just a beat too fast. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. I hated that guy. I used to mock that guy. So I ignored the pattern until I saw the name on the Wi-Fi network. Mariner Guest Atrium 1. Mariner Hotel. She said it was called Sea Vista. That stuck out to me. I remember specifically because I joked that it sounded like a cruise line for retirees. I even looked it up later. It did exist. Sea Vista Inn was 3 miles down the road, not even the same chain. This wasn't a mistake, it was a change. So I waited until she came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her damp hair dripping onto the floral carpet that hadn't been cleaned since Bush was president. Hey, I said, holding the receipt between 2 fingers like a peace offering. You told me we were staying at Sea Vista. She blinked just once. Yeah, she said, reaching for her overnight bag. I thought we were, but they were full. This one popped up on Expedia last minute. Didn't seem like a big deal. You didn't mention the change. I told you last night. You didn't, I said. You just said it's cheaper. She stopped moving, her shoulder tensed. She didn't turn around. Mia, I said softer, is there a reason you picked this hotel? Seriously, she snapped, now facing me. It was $70 cheaper. I figured you appreciate that, Mr. Budget spreadsheet. That tone, defensive when no one was attacking. I nodded, let it drop. For the moment. That night, we went to her cousin's dinner, big long table, lots of toasts, everyone drinking sangria out of mason jars and trying to make inside jokes louder than the next table over. I played the part, laughed at the right stories, held her hand under the table. But something in me stayed switched on, some part of my brain that normally clocked out for the weekend. When we got back to the hotel, I pretended to be tired. She changed into one of my old t-shirts, crawled into bed, and fell asleep watching Property Brothers. I stayed up, pulled out my laptop, opened a private window, looked up Mariner Hotel Charleston and clicked the staff tab. And there it was. Logan R., front desk supervisor. I clicked the photo, heart kicking. He had the same jawline I remembered from Mia's old Facebook photos, back when we first got together. She'd scrubbed those albums since, but I'd seen them. The guy who used to take mirror selfies with her, the one with the chin scar and the inked knuckles and the one-word Instagram captions. Logan. He worked here. I sat back in the stiff desk chair and stared at the screen. Suddenly, the hotel choice wasn't just cheaper. It was familiar, convenient, intimate in a way I wasn't supposed to know about. I stared at Mia, her face half-lit by the glow of the TV. She shifted in her sleep and tugged the blanket up to her chin like a kid. I closed the laptop. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, she was chipper, French braid, flowy sundress, already sipping on the hotel's watery coffee. "You ready for the ceremony?" she asked, handing me one of those granola bars that taste like cardboard and regret. I nodded, yep. We got in the car, she put on a playlist, sang softly to herself, scrolled through Instagram at red lights. I just watched her, tried to decide when I became the guy who didn't ask hard questions out loud. We sat through a 2-hour ceremony on metal bleachers in the sun, clapped at the right times, posed for photos. But I wasn't there. I was still in that hotel room, still staring at that staff photo, still trying to figure out what I believed. After the reception, she said she needed to run back to the hotel to grab something she forgot. "Alone. I'll meet you at the restaurant," she said, kissing me on the cheek. "Just need 20 minutes. I offered to come with, she said no. Then she left. I stood in the gravel parking lot watching her taillights vanish. And I felt it. Something was about to break. The restaurant she told me to meet her at was a trendy little spot called The Wreck. One of those converted warehouse places with overpriced appetizers and industrial lighting that made everyone look like they had something to confess. I parked around the corner and sat in the car, engine off, windows cracked, letting the humid Charleston air crawl in. 20 minutes, she said. It had already been 27. I wasn't tracking her like a jealous boyfriend. I was timing her like a man clinging to the last threads of plausible denial. I kept telling myself I could be wrong, that I wanted to be wrong. She could have forgotten her necklace, or maybe she spilled something on her dress, maybe she went back to change. Except Mia didn't care about wrinkles or stains. She used to go to brunch in mismatched socks and swear it was a style choice. I watched the time tick up on the dash, 32 minutes, 38:42. I still hadn't gone inside. I wasn't hungry anymore. Eventually, I got out, walked the block, and stepped into the Wreck, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs and a waitstaff in denim aprons. She wasn't there. I checked the bar, checked the bathroom hallway, nothing. So I sat at a small table in the back, facing the door. I ordered a club soda and stared at my phone screen until the bubbles went flat. 57 minutes. When she finally walked in, it was like nothing had happened. "Sorry," she said, brushing her bangs out of her face. Traffic was nuts. There's only one main road from the hotel to that restaurant. I knew because I had followed her on Google Maps. She made the drive in 12 minutes. I didn't say anything, not yet. She leaned over and kissed my temple. Her lips were cold. "Hope you didn't wait long," she added. I gave a tight smile. "No big deal." That night we drove back to the hotel in silence. She claimed she had a headache. I offered to pick up ibuprofen from the CVS nearby, but she said she brought some. She rummaged through her bag while I stared at the tiny blinking light on the hotel air conditioner. The next morning, I did something I never do. I called in sick to work on a Monday. I didn't even fake a cough. "Family emergency," I said flatly into the phone while standing outside the hotel, the heat already pushing through my shirt. Mia was still inside packing. She thought we were heading back together. I had a different plan. Back home, I pretended everything was fine for a few days. Normalcy became a performance, and I was the understudy trying not to trip. But I kept going back to that staff photo, that jawline, the names, Logan. He was her ex, of that I was now sure, not some friend, not a coincidence. She booked us at his hotel, then left me for nearly an hour while she went to grab something. I could have asked her outright, sat her down, looked her in the eye. But something in me wanted proof, not speculation, not doubt. Proof. So I did what I hadn't done since we got married. I checked her phone. While she showered one morning, I opened her nightstand drawer, found it plugged in and unlocked, and I looked. No text from Logan. No recent call log entries. No social media messages. But when I opened her email, I found something. A folder titled Travel. Inside, 2 confirmations, one for our booking at Mariner Hotel and one from 2 weeks earlier. Same hotel. Single room, 2 nights. Booked under her maiden name. My stomach turned cold. I scrolled down. Check-in Friday 2 weeks ago. Check-out Sunday. And a line that punched me in the throat. Special request, high floor, atrium view, early check-in if possible. That was before this trip, before she told me she found the deal. So she'd been here recently, alone, or at least she hadn't told me about it. She booked that trip under a name she hadn't used in 6 years. I put the phone down. Later that evening, I brought it up. Not the snooping, not the email, just the name. Do you still talk to Logan? I asked, keeping my voice level. She looked up from her laptop. What? Logan, I repeated. Your ex, he still lives here, doesn't he? She blinked, then smiled tight-lipped. Why are you bringing him up? You booked us at the hotel where he works. Silence. Is this some kind of test? She asked, because it feels like you're fishing for something. I'm not fishing, I said. I'm asking, did you know he worked there? She shrugged. I knew he used to, years ago. I didn't think he still did. He does. More silence. The air between us went still. Okay, she said eventually. So what, you think I booked the hotel because of him? I think you stayed there 2 weeks ago, alone. Her face changed. The shift was small but seismic. Her shoulders lifted. Her eyes narrowed, but only slightly. She didn't deny it. You went through my email. I didn't answer that. She stood up. You know what? I don't need this, she said. You get suspicious over one cheap hotel room and suddenly I'm on trial. I didn't stop her as she walked out of the room, just sat there, the air going stale around me, the silence louder than it should have been. For the first time in our marriage, I felt completely outside of it, like I was looking through a window at a life that no longer included me. She stayed gone for 3 hours. Came back without explanation. Acted like we hadn't spoken. 2 days later, I confronted her again, this time calmly, with everything. I saw the reservation, I said, the one under your maiden name. You stayed there before this trip. Why? Mia crossed her arms. I needed space, she said. Things have been tense between us. You don't talk to me. You're always in your head. I just needed a breather. You needed a hotel room to breathe. She looked away. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? No answer. I asked her again if she saw him. Still no answer. And that silence, that refusal to answer, was its own kind of confession. I slept on the couch for the first time that night, not because she told me to, not because we fought, but because I couldn't lay beside someone who met silence with more silence. The couch sagged in the middle and smelled faintly of old takeout and the dog we used to talk about getting but never did. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, thinking about everything and nothing, trying to connect dots that didn't want to line up neatly. Mia didn't bring it up in the morning. She made coffee, scrolled her phone, and asked if I wanted the last banana like we were 2 roommates sharing an apartment they'd both outgrown. I didn't take the banana. Instead, I called in sick again, 2 days in a row. It wasn't even about work anymore. I just didn't want to be around anyone who might look me in the eye and ask how things were at home. Around noon, I got in the car and drove. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't even know at first. I just drove until the streets stopped looking familiar and the exits stopped feeling like invitations. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of the Mariner Hotel. The place looked exactly the same in daylight. Beige stucco, cracked sidewalk, faded signage with a missing E in welcome. It wasn't impressive. It wasn't romantic. It was deliberate. I walked in like I had a reason to be there. The lobby smelled like air freshener trying too hard, pine mixed with stale coffee and something faintly bleaky. Behind the desk stood a guy in his 30s. Clean cut, pressed shirt, name tag. Logan. I knew it immediately. He hadn't changed much. Maybe a little more tired around the eyes, but still the same scar on the chin, same resting smirk. He looked up from the screen and gave a polite nod. Checking in. No, I said, just had a question. He tilted his head, sure. I kept my voice even. Do you remember a guest, Mia Halpern, stayed here a couple weekends ago? She might have used the name Mia Jordan. His eyes flicked just for a second, then the professional tone kicked back in. Sorry, sir, I'm not allowed to give out guest information. I nodded. That makes sense. I turned to go, then paused. Just so you know, I said without turning around, I'm her husband. That got his attention. I didn't need to look to know he was watching me walk out. I didn't have a plan, I just needed to see him, to say it, to see if there'd be a flicker of guilt or a stutter of denial. There was. That night I told Mia. I told her I went to the hotel, told her I saw him, told her I asked. She didn't ask why, she didn't shout. She just sat on the edge of the bed and said, "So now what?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I want to believe you didn't lie to me. I want to believe you needed space, that nothing happened." She looked at me for a long time. And then finally she said, "I saw him." I didn't breathe. "It wasn't planned," she added quickly. "I went there to clear my head. I booked it under my old name because I don't know, I didn't want to be found. But when I got there, he was working the desk." "So you talked?" "We caught up, that's all." I stared at her. "Just caught up?" "Yes." "Did you go to his room?" Silence. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I felt something in my chest fold in half. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean for it to be anything." I nodded slowly. "Was it just once?" She didn't answer that either. The next few days passed like static. No music, no shared meals, no plans. Just two people orbiting the same space, pretending the gravity still worked. One night I sat at the kitchen table and finally said it. "I can't do this if I don't know the truth." Mia rubbed her eyes. "What truth are you looking for, Liam? That I cheated, that I don't love you anymore?" "I'm looking for the truth you keep avoiding." She sighed long and heavy. "I slept with him," she said, "once that weekend, and then I felt like I couldn't come back to you without lying." I stared at her like she'd just named something I'd spent weeks trying not to believe existed. She kept going. "It didn't mean anything, we just talked, and one thing led to another. I shouldn't have done it. I was angry at you, at us. I didn't want it to be real. I just wanted to feel like someone saw me again." That last part hit harder than the rest. Because I knew what she meant. We stopped seeing each other, really seeing each other, months ago. Between work and bills and routines, we became co-managers of a life that didn't ask much of us emotionally, until it did. And now here we were. Mia cried. I didn't. I just sat there, my hands on the table like they might hold something steady. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said quietly. "I know I screwed up, I just didn't want to carry it alone anymore." I nodded. That night I slept in the guest room. The next morning I packed a bag. She didn't stop me. Just stood at the door and said, "Take the time you need." So I left. Moved into a small apartment downtown. 1 bedroom, no cable, just me and the sound of a city that didn't know what I was walking away from. Every morning, I woke up wondering if I'd made the right choice. Every night, I went to bed feeling like I had no choice at all. My new apartment smelled like paint and metal and whatever cheap disinfectant the property manager used to make it seem cleaner than it was. The walls were bare. The mattress sat on the floor. The fridge hummed like it missed company. I lived out of 2 suitcases and a duffel bag like someone planning to leave again before the dust settled. I didn't decorate, I didn't unpack anything I didn't absolutely need. The space wasn't home, it was a holding cell between endings. I told people I just needed some space. Most didn't ask follow-up questions. My coworker Daniel offered to help me move stuff from the house, but I lied and said Mia was handling it. I couldn't bear the idea of walking back into that house to divide our lives into labeled cardboard boxes. We texted sometimes, always short, always vague. Hers, "Let me know if you want to come get the mail." Me, "You can leave it on the porch." Her, "I'll be at the gym tonight if you need to swing by." Me, "Thanks." Not once did we talk about the hotel again. It lived between us now, unspoken but fully alive, like a third presence that could enter a room and change the temperature. I thought about therapy, even saved the number to a place someone at work recommended. But every time I hovered over the call button, I'd hear my dad's voice in my head, "Ain't nothing wrong with you that a long walk or a short beer can't fix." That voice wasn't helpful, but it was loud. So I did what I've always done. I worked. I clocked in early, took double shifts, said yes to things that used to make me groan. If someone needed to swap days, I raised my hand. It helped for a while until it didn't. Because work fills the hours, but it doesn't fix the silence. And silence was everywhere. One night, about 3 weeks into my exile, I got a text from Mia that said, "I boxed up some of your stuff, thought you might want your tools there in the garage." I didn't answer right away. But 2 days later, I drove over while I knew she'd be out. I still had my key. The house smelled like her: coconut shampoo, coffee grounds, and the faint smell of citrus-scented cleaner. It made my chest ache. In the garage, there were two boxes, one marked TOOLS and the other just said Liam. Inside the first were my sockets, wrenches, measuring tape, and a screwdriver I'd had since college. The second box had an old hoodie, a framed photo of us at Lake Lure, and a handwritten card I gave her on our second anniversary. I sat on the garage step and stared at that photo. We were smiling, sunburned. Her nose was pink from forgetting sunscreen. My hand was on her shoulder. It looked like love. It was love. I stayed there for an hour, just sitting, listening to the quiet, trying to decide if I wanted to keep pretending the photo meant something anymore or if it was just a snapshot of who we used to be before life weathered us down. I took both boxes. As I was backing out of the driveway, I saw a car slow down, not stop, not pull in, just slow. Logan's car. I recognized it from the hotel lot. He didn't look over, didn't wave. Just kept going. But it was enough. Enough to confirm that this, whatever this was, wasn't over. A week later, I saw Mia at the grocery store. She was in the produce aisle holding a bunch of asparagus and talking to someone I didn't recognize. She looked lighter, like someone who'd started sleeping again. She didn't see me at first. So I turned around, walked 3 aisles over, and stared blankly at soup cans. Eventually, she found me. "Hey," she said, voice softer than I expected. "Hey." She stood next to me, hands still holding that asparagus like it mattered. "You look tired," she said. I nodded. "Yeah." "You still at the apartment?" "Yep." "You eating?" she asked, like she didn't already know the answer. I gave a half shrug. "Enough." She paused. "I've been going to therapy," she said. That caught me off guard. "Good," I said. "I mean, that's good." She nodded. "You should try it," she added. "You don't have to talk to me, but it helps, having somewhere to put all of it." I wanted to say something snarky, wanted to ask her if she put him in the sessions too, but I didn't. Instead, I asked the one thing I hadn't let myself ask yet. "Are you still seeing him?" She blinked. Then so quietly I almost missed it, she said no. It didn't sound like a lie. But it didn't sound like a victory either. We stood there for another moment, like two people waiting for a train that might never come. "I should go," she said finally, "my cart over by the cheese." I let out a short laugh. "Yeah, I wouldn't want to lose your brie." That made her smile, barely. Then she walked off. And I stood there in the canned goods aisle, holding a can of black beans I didn't need, wondering if this was what closure looked like. Aisle 5, bad lighting, no apology that made anything easier. Later that night, I finally called the therapist. Her name was Emily, soft voice, direct questions. She didn't let me dodge anything. In the third session, I told her everything, about the hotel, the lie, the silence. She listened. And then she said something that stuck. Sometimes betrayal is the end of the story. Sometimes it's the part that forces you to stop pretending everything was fine before it happened. I sat with that. Because she was right. Mia didn't ruin something perfect. She cracked something that had been fragile for a long time. And in a way that hurt more. Because it meant we both let it happen. The question now wasn't whether we could go back. It was whether either of us still wanted to. A month after the grocery store run-in, Mia texted me again. "I'm going to be out of town for a few days. If you need anything from the house, this weekend's probably a good time." I stared at the message longer than I should have. Part of me wondered why she thought I'd still want anything from that house. But another part, stubborn, nostalgic, or maybe just lonely, wondered if it was her way of saying she still expected me to show up, even now. I didn't reply. But I went. It was a Sunday morning, early, the sun barely up, the dew still clinging to the windshield of my car. The neighborhood was quiet. I parked in front of the house like I used to, passenger side facing the curb, same spot every time. The door key still worked. I stepped inside and was hit with a wave of memory. The worn rug, the scuffed baseboards I always said I'd paint, the faint hum of the fridge we fought about replacing for 2 years. It felt less like home and more like a version of me that no longer fit. The box she'd mentioned was in the hall closet. A few of my books, my old flannel, a charger I'd forgotten, and sitting on top, wrapped in a hand towel, was the coffee mug Mia gave me on our 3rd anniversary, the one that said, "Still choosing you." I almost laughed. The irony was sharp and ugly. I sat on the edge of the couch, our couch, and let the silence stretch. And then I saw the envelope. It was propped up on the TV stand, just barely peeking out from under the cable box. My name was written on it, just Liam. Inside, a letter, her handwriting. No perfume, no hearts, just black ink on plain lined paper. Liam, I've rewritten this about 6 times. I keep trying to figure out what part of this letter is supposed to make anything better. I know it won't. But I also know that you deserve to hear things from me, not from silence, not from suspicion, and not from whatever story your mind had to fill in. Yes, I cheated once with Logan. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't planned. And I won't insult you by saying it didn't mean anything, because clearly it did. It meant that something in me felt so lost and disconnected, I reached backward instead of forward. I was angry at myself, at us, at how quiet we'd become in each other's lives. But here's the part I never said, and I need to. It wasn't about him, it was about feeling like a ghost in my own marriage. And I know that's not fair. You were there, you've always been there in your way, but I needed more and didn't know how to ask without making it sound like a complaint. So I made a mistake. A big one. And instead of facing it, I tried to bury it under logistics and hotel excuses. That's on me. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't expect anything. I just want you to know I'm sorry. Not just for the lie, but for the distance I helped build between us. For every night I turned away instead of turning toward. For every small resentment I let harden into silence. I am going to therapy. I'm working on figuring out who I am when I'm not reacting to fear or guilt or loneliness. If we never speak again, I'll understand. But I hope we do. Take care of yourself. Always. Mia. I read it twice. The second time slower, letting each word sit. It didn't change what happened, but it helped me understand why it happened. That night, I walked the 2 blocks from my apartment to a little diner that stays open late. I ordered pancakes and sat by the window watching strangers walk by in pairs. Some held hands, some argued. One couple stopped to kiss like they were 17 and late for curfew. I thought about Mia. And then I thought about me. About how long I'd gone without asking myself what I wanted, outside of fixing things, outside of saving the story, outside of pretending I wasn't hurting. The truth is, I don't know what comes next. We haven't talked since I read the letter. But for the first time in months, I feel like I could. Not to fix it. Not to pretend it never happened. But maybe to finally talk like 2 people who have both been broken and still showed up anyway. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.